everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Russian Football ASMR. So as you can probably tell, I have a new mic, so hopefully it no longer sounds like I'm speaking through a traffic cone. Today is our third episode. We've got our first guest on, so we've got our usual host, Hanu, and then we've got our first guest, as I said, Richard Pike. Richard, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello everybody, my name is Richard Pike. I'm a writer for Russian Football News. I've wrote for the site now, I think, for 3.5 years. I've liked Russian football since, about way back in the 2000s, and started to get fully into it around 2016, 2017 time, maybe a bit earlier than that. And very happy and delighted to be on the podcast today.
It is. And Hanu, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm glad to actually get this podcast recorded because our regular listeners might not know, but we've been in pre-production for about 30 minutes now, and we've managed to get the podcast finally started. And this week we've got a lot to discuss. There have been 2 game weeks since we recorded last time. We're going to go through those with you. To start, Artem, how many games did you watch over the past week, and what did you think of the 2 weeks? Do you think they were better than the first game week of the season?
I'm not going to lie, I don't remember much of the weekend's games.
Right.
But to be honest, I don't think there was much memorable out of them. The last couple of days have been very interesting, though. Some very good games in there.
Yeah, Richard, what about you? How many games have you watched? And what were your thoughts on the weekend?
I think I watched about, hi Anna, I think I watched about 3 or 4 games at the weekend, and I think 4 games I watched Tuesday and Wednesday. Which one games did I do? I watched second half of Sochi Rubin. I watched the whole of Krasnodar Arsenal, and then I watched Ufa Spartak, Dynamo Rostov, and CSKA Zenit. I watched 5 games midweek and 4 games at the weekend. The Rubin Sochi game probably my favourite. It ebbed and flowed. Sochi took the lead, then Rubin came back and equalised and took the lead, and then Sochi did Rubin late on with 2 late goals. That was probably my favourite game of the last 2 match days.
Absolutely mental, that game, wasn't it?
It was weird. I mean, Rubin, it's strange, isn't it? Because we thought with the signings Rubin made this season, they're finally going to start looking up and, challenging for Europe and things like that, because they made some very good signings on paper, but it just seems to me like they're laced with disappointment. It's back to the same old. They only drew at the weekend, and then to be up 2-1 and lose it late with 2 goals from set pieces. It's that expectation and the disappointment that crushes you, I guess. So, but it was a great game. It was a great game.
Rubin have had a really poor start to the season, I'd say. I feel like they only have 1 point at the moment, right?
That's it, 1 point from 3 games.
Which is so surprising considering, now that their manager Slutsky and, they have a decent team on paper, like you said. They really should probably have won against Sochi, and they should have picked up at least a couple more points on their way in the last 2 games. What do you think they need to do to turn it around?
Shall I let Hanu go first, or?
Yeah, Hanu, we haven't had much input from you yet. So, Hanu, what do you think they need to do?
I don't know, and me and Artem were discussing off air as well about Rubin, and we jokingly thought about whether Leonid Slutsky is a fraud because of that lukewarm start he's had to life in Kazan. I don't know what it is with them, because they have a team. They've made 16 transfers since Slutsky signed in about 8 months. 16 transfers is a lot. But, they still can't score. They've got a couple of decent players, a lot of issues already. Maybe they just need time to gel. Maybe they just, maybe it's a matter of, getting a couple of more players in, getting their players that are injured back to full fitness. And you never know, they might put up a charge for Europe. But right now it looks pretty bleak for me. I'd love to know what Richard thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to need time to gel these players. Scoring goals was a huge problem for them last season, wasn't it? I think they only scored. I think it was something like 18 goals in 30 games, which that is the definition of firing blanks up front. It really is. It's absolutely shocking. They went and got George Despotovic, and It's a great name, and I love how the fact he's got Despot on the back of his shirt. Quite funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a good goal scorer. He scored a lot of goals for Orenburg. I think he'll need time. He'll need time to gel, but get into the side. Kvicha Kvaratskhelia. I have literally still not fully sure how you pronounce it, so I'm going to call him Kvicha. He's a good player. He looks like he's someone who is a class above that team at the moment. He's involved in all their attacking play, all their chances. And so, yeah, maybe it's a little bit too early yet to be panicking or saying maybe Slutsky's not up to it, anything like that. I think it's far too early to be saying that yet. His track record with CSKA proves it. I think, like Hanu said, I think it's just a case of these players will need time to gel. Defensively, though they're all over the place. It was a strength of theirs last season, but so far this season, I think they've conceded, isn't it, 6 goals in 3 games? So that's already way up on what it was last season. They're going to have to tighten that up and get back to...
That's one of the things I've always noted with Slutsky teams is that defensively, like, okay, right, when he was at CSKA, he had the 2 twins and Ignashevich, which is a solid defense. But like outside of that, his teams have always been very defensively poor. Like, it doesn't look like he has any tactics when it comes to defense. That's one of my biggest criticisms of Slutsky. I love the man. I love his teams, but defensively, like when Russia played in Euro 2016, oh my God, what a mess, right? Hull City, okay, not everything went his way down at Hull. Like a lot of his best players were sold and he never got them replaced. Vitesse as well, like from what I heard, don't get me wrong, I didn't watch many Vitesse games when he was there, but from what I heard, his defensive tactics were shocking too. So is that just something that he can't instill in his teams? Like, is that going to be a problem going forward? Or Rubin are going to be one of those teams that scores a lot of goals in the future, but concedes more than they score?
I don't know. I think, to be fair, you know what? You have to give credit to Slutsky because he did develop Martin Odegaard and Karavayev, who are 2 of the best players in their respective leagues right now. So, he is he's a great man manager. He's a very good attacking. Like, I don't know, because look at Rubin's back line, and they've got Filip Uremovic, who's a very good defender. They've got, on paper, Rubin's team is far better than what they actually play like. So I don't know, maybe it's a matter of time, but it is an interesting observation that Slutsky might not be as good of a manager at the back as we think he is. And our eagle-eyed viewers might notice that this is just the week 3 results. We haven't even noticed the week 2 results because there was not much to really talk about. Arsenal Tula lost 3-2 to Ufa in what was an interesting game. Both the Kangwa brothers got sent off, but that was probably the most interesting thing that weekend. Lokomotiv beat Krasnodar. Miranchuk with a phenomenal goal. We're going to discuss him later on too. And Zenit beat Rostov. But I think Rubin it's hard to predict, and we will get to discussing more teams and managers in a more loose format later on in the podcast. But the other thing we wanted to talk about was, Artem, you wanted to mention Zenit CSKA and what you thought of that game yesterday?
I mean, it wasn't great to watch, was it? Like, don't get me wrong, the goals were great. Each one of them was entertaining, but apart from that, it was a bit of a dead game.
Yeah, it honestly was not a great game because me and the lads were on Discord yesterday, and we had a fun time with things that went on outside of the game on social media and so on, which we'll get to. But Richard, what do you think of that game and any other games you might want to mention for this week?
I think Zenit, once again, like you said, yeah, it wasn't the best game to watch. I was out for the first stab and the rest of it, and yeah, I agree with you guys. It wasn't a great game to watch. It was two very good goals. I will say though, Vlasic's was an absolute peach right into the top corner to equalise for CSKA. And you're both Vazmun's goals were very good. I thought he was very, very good finishes. The second one in particular, I love how he disguised it. Like sometimes when you're a forward, you just blast it into row Z when you're in that position where he was, but he just delicately guided it into the bottom corner, maybe even caught Akinfeev and the CSKA defence out, which I thought was a really good finish, and he's developing really well. But yeah, I know what you mean about Zenit CSKA game. It wasn't great. I have to be honest, Zenit are functional, but my big fear for them is in the Champions League. I still think they need another signing in attack. I know Malcolm wasn't fit for last season's Champions League, so that was a huge blow for them in attack. They sometimes probably could have done with him. But I still think Zenit are missing somebody in that midfield who can keep hold of the ball. And, you know, in European games, you've got to keep the ball and be disciplined. And I still think Zenit are missing that player. Maybe someone who can give them a bit more of a possession mentality in attack. I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. But yeah, I think they're functional at the minute, Zenit, and they're doing okay. But I want to see a bit more, you know. Still, I mean, they should still win the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think my fear for them is in the Champions League, they're going to have to do better this season. This is Samak's third year. Now we've got to start seeing progress in the Champions League, or if he drops out into the latter stages of the Europa League. A couple of other games I want to mention. Dynamo winning against Rostov, I thought was a nice surprise as well. I watched through for Spartak, and how Spartak didn't win that game is beyond me. I mean, Spartak and Dynamo, you could call them the Anna Kournikovas of Russian Premier League. They constantly look good, but they never win. Well, Dynamo are now, but you know, we always know with Dynamo and Spartak to, you know, take it with a pinch of salt. Let's see it over a 10-15 game period, not just a few games, because we've been here before, and I've no doubt we'll be here again. But yeah, but those are two other results that stood out to me for Spartak and Dynamo Rostov in yesterday's games. Dynamo I thought looked quite good when they got the lead. They controlled the game. But, you know, let's not get the party poopers off just yet, because we've been here before with Dynamo and been here before with Spartak.
Agree.
Yeah, Dynamo did look good, to be fair. Do you think they're looking at European places this season?
I think what you're seeing in Russian football at the minute is, I think we're starting to get a top six emerging. I think who are starting to pull away a bit from the rest is going to be Zenit, Krasnodar, and then the four Moscow clubs. I was thinking Rubin might join that list, but obviously we've gone through it just beforehand. They've been a little bit disappointing so far. But yeah, I think the top six, I think, are starting to pull away a little bit from the rest, because, you know, Rostov finished ahead of Dynamo last year, but Rostov now, their side's starting to age a little bit. Dynamo look like they've made some very good signings in Fomin and Nikola Moro. And I think Spartak too on paper got some good signings. So yeah, I think the top six are starting to pull away a little bit. And I definitely think Dynamo will be in the mix for European football. I'm not quite sure top two for the Champions League, but they'll definitely be between third and sixth with the look of it. They look like they're getting a good side together. So, but obviously we've been here before with Dynamo, just to be on that cautious note.
Yeah, just to, you know, round off the week's results. Tambov Khimki, I don't think anybody wants to know about that game. I was watching Karabakh in the Champions League first qualification round over that game. Krasnodar, couple of decent goals. Spartak and Lokomotiv, we've talked about, they bottled Smolov with a goal. Akhmat Rotor, now this game nobody really cares about, but the goals Akhmat scored in this game were very, very good. So if anybody wants to check them out, maybe, you know, it's Roshi and Ilian with a couple of good goals. Before we get off the playing field and focus more a little bit on Zenit CSKA, Artem, do you agree with Richard's assessment of Zenit in the Champions League? Because I 100% agree. I think they'll win the league, they'll walk the league, which I said to you yesterday too. But I'm just not sure about the Champions League, because the team did not really look menacing. They looked comfortable, but never looked menacing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, to be honest. You know, like Richard, I think that we need a midfielder who can carry the ball forward, someone like a Witzel type. But no idea where that's going to come from. Obviously, the foreign limit is quite literally limiting us in the Premier League. So will we bring in someone who's Russian? Who will that be? Like, I'm struggling to see where a signing's going to come from.
Just to come in there, Artem, I saw earlier that in the week they were being linked with Damien Letalak, who plays for Montpellier in France. And I thought at first, okay, why do they want another foreign player? Because they're already on the limit. But actually, he's eligible for a Russian passport. He's played in Mordovia before. He's had two very good seasons at Montpellier. He finished 5th and I think 8th in Ligue 1. And he played as a regular pretty much every game. And Zenit, he can play in defence and midfield. So Zenit need a fourth centre-half at the moment. They've only really got 3. I mean, they played Santos there yesterday, but that could be quite a useful signing. And then you're still on the 8 limit. And I think I'd keep Driussi. Driussi's quite good, but Rigoni, I think he'd be the one I'd sacrifice for that extra signing. I don't know what you think, but Rigoni's probably the one who I'd get rid of if I was going to get rid of any of Zenit's foreign players to make room for another player.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, to be honest. Like, I'd get rid of Rigoni as well. It doesn't seem like Semak wants to use him on a regular. And in terms of Letalik, yeah, I saw that news actually, but he's not the Witzel type player I'm talking about. Really, it's he would be a good player to have in CM, CDM, maybe centre back if we really need him. But I can't imagine he'd be playing there on a regular.
Can we stop the Rigoni slander there for a second? Because I think it's quite clear that Rigoni is actually the best player in that squad. Cemak just saves him for the big games against like teams in the cup, so that the league isn't overwhelmed by him. I don't know why.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why this random French defensive midfielder is being chosen over Rigoni. But I'd probably
Can we? Hannah, here's a question for you: is Rigoni the best Argentinian to ever play football?
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Like he's top 3, but I don't know if he's quite first.
I think one good season, and I think he'll be the best. I think if he scores another goal against Kimki or Akhmat, I think we might see him at the top. Now, Zenit CSKA, we'll move swiftly on to Zenit CSKA. Now, the game we've discussed wasn't as great, but there were a couple of other things that caught our attention and that became popular on the Twitters, as we like to call it. One of those things was Adolfo Gaich making his first start. As you can see, this very hilarious Twitter account, you should go and follow it, is talking about how Adolfo Gaich woke up feeling dangerous today. That's a great caption. Wonder who put it there. But you can see the stats, 0-0-0 for almost everything. He got 20 touches in 57 minutes, completed 5 passes, 0 accurate crosses. One duel, another duel, 10 times he lost possession, committed 2 fouls. He was basically a tree. He was what people called Marcus Berg. He's the Argentinian Marcus Berg, not the good Marcus Berg either. So again, I've said it here that he had 0 support and it was just one game. But Artem, we'll start with you. Do you think Gaich? What did you think of Gaich's masterclass yesterday?
I'd forgotten he existed just there. I think he might just be ahead of Rigoni in that best Argentinian footballer of all time category. But in seriousness, he just looked lost. Like you said, 0 support. But you know what I think CSKA went into that game thinking, okay, Zenit don't have Rakitsky, so they're going to be playing a centre-back partnership of Lovren and someone who either doesn't play in defence or a very young player. So we'll bring in this guy to bully them as a target man. And then they just didn't play the style of football that you need with a target man. They weren't whipping crosses in. They were basically just playing through Vlasic. And at that point, what is Gaich really meant to do? I feel kind of bad for him, to be honest, because there's nothing really he could do. With his style of play, the way he plays, there's not really... he's not going to be making runs in behind. You need to get the ball to his feet in the box. Or to his head.
Yeah, I agree there. I still think he's a good player, even though that performance doesn't really raise confidence for him. I think he needs another man, because you want either wing play, and Fernandes was trying, but even he couldn't do much yesterday. And they had Kuchaev up front with him, who I don't think is a good striker to complement a player like Adolfo Gaich. Maybe if they play not Vlasic, Chalov alongside him, it might be a bit better. But no, not a great start to life in Russia for Adolfo Gaich. Richard, what did you think of his performance yesterday?
No, we were saying that Hannah, on the podcast on RFN a few weeks ago, or Football News a few weeks ago. We were saying how we kind of need to see Gaich partnered up with somebody. Like I said, yeah, he was ineffective when I saw him yesterday, but they didn't really play to his strengths, like you were saying. It's early doors just yet. He might go on to become the best Argentine striker around. But it wasn't a great start. No, let's be frank, it's not a great start. But I think he needs somebody up there with him, and I think CSKA are going to have to eventually develop their formation. They're going to have to put both Chalov and Gaich up front with Vlasic in behind. I think that's the best solution to the problem. They're going to have to do that. Yeah, we need to give him time. Perspective is needed, I think, in a situation like this. But yeah, not a great debut. He really did look like Bambi on ice out there yesterday. It wasn't a good sight.
Yeah, I think even Bambi on ice has more movement and more dynamism than Gaich, because he was honestly like a tree yesterday.
A lamppost on
lamppost on
ice
that's probably
is
much better. But we had another interesting moment yesterday, and this is by this random account on Twitter called No Context Russian Football. I don't know what weirdo runs it, but you can basically, it's pretty funny. Driussi chucks the ball at Mario Fernandes, and even the commentator knew that it was a weird one. Now, in the retweets and in the comments to this, there are troves of CSKA fans angry. We saw some of them were disappointed, some of them were just sad about how Driussi could be such a hardened criminal. Now, there's a couple of questions to be asked here. First, and we'll go to you, Richard. Do you think he did it on purpose?
Of course he did it on purpose. It's the Argentine attacker and the Brazilian-born Russian nationalized defender. Of course he did it on purpose. It's that Brazil-Argentine. Yeah, it's that Brazil-Argentine, rivalry. Of course he did it on purpose. What do you mean? No. In seriousness, I don't think he did it on purpose. No, it's just so comical though. I think it is one of those things where it's. I don't think he did it on purpose. I mean, no way the guy will know for sure, but. I don't think he did it on purpose, no, but it's still just absolutely hilarious. And it's still the Brazil-Argentina beef. That's always good.
The funniest thing for me, I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think Driussi has that kind of accuracy with a throw-in, to be honest. But the funniest thing for me is the fact that when he hit him in the face, he just walked over and picked the ball up again, as if like, oh yeah, nothing's just happened. Like, he is a bit of a dickhead.
Yeah, he is. He's quite cold.
But the funniest thing of all of that, to be honest, was when you look at the retweets and comments. Like, I think it's over 130 retweets, quoted tweets, that are just calling Driussi a prick. Zenit are like, every name under the sun. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, and this tweet, it got picked up by referees, it got picked up by journalists, it got picked up by like some other important people, it got picked up by a couple of players and so on. Now, if you actually analyze Driussi's form while he throws it, it's actually a very powerful throw to the point where, because it hits Fernandes with quite a bit of torque. And then you would think, did he do that on purpose? Because where else is he trying to aim that? Does Fernandes just walk in his way while he's trying to throw that over there? It's one to analyze for years to come. Now, do you guys think he should have been yellow or red carded for this, Artem?
Nah, no way. Like, the thing is, to give him a yellow card for something like that, I feel like you'd have to prove the intent, like, and there's no way to do that. Like, he can always just be like, oh, that's clearly an accident or whatever. I feel like he was just trying to get it to Zuba, to be honest. I think he saw Mario Fernandes in front of him and he was like, okay, clearly I have to, put a bit of power in this to get it past him. And just ended up hitting him in the face. I don't think there's anything malicious behind it. But like I said, it's pretty funny that he just pretends like nothing happened.
Richard, do you think he should have deserved a card there?
No, I'm with Artem there. I don't think it deserved the yellow or red card. No, I think it's just one of those freak things. It's a freak accident. He's trying to get the ball to Zuba, and Fernandes just happens to be standing in the way, and he's a good accurate throw. It hit him right smack bang on the middle of the face. It's just a complete freak accident. I don't think he should have been yellow carded for that. No. But yeah, I love, just as you were saying, you guys saying, I love the way he just walks away like, okay, I'll just throw it back again next time. There's just no shame in it. But no, it's a complete accident. I don't think it was merited a yellow card. No.
CSKA fans were not happy with that at all. I think they were more pissed off with Driussi than the actual result and the performance of their team yesterday.
Fact.
So let's move on to transfers we discussed a bit at the start, but let's have a look at some some transfers. Ezra Talai is gone to Denmark. That's one that I'm sure the geeks will be very excited about. But maybe I think since our last podcast, this Korean bloke went to Rubin Kazan as well. Do you know anything about him, Richard?
What I do know is I think he was a designated player in MLS with Vancouver Whitecaps, which obviously, if you're a designated player in MLS, you've obviously got a bit of a reputation about you. I've never honestly seen him play. Maybe Rubin might have found the new Alphonso Davies. Who knows? Because obviously they're due £1 million if Bayern win the Champions League, €1 million Champions League. No, joking aside, I've never actually seen him play, but you just never know. I mean, obviously, if he's a designated player in MLS, he must have a bit of a reputation about him. Maybe he's a player who Rubin could could use to good effect. But I've never actually seen him play. No, so
Yeah, same. I think
curious.
pretty similar there. Now, two of probably the biggest done deals so far, apart from Lovren and Gaich. The Croatian Modric, Nikola Moro, has moved from Dynamo Zagreb to Dynamo Moscow, and they actually beat Dynamo Kiev out for him. So a nice Dynamo trifecta going on there. He made his debut yesterday. I didn't see it, but I listened to his interview, and he seems like a nice bloke, very highly rated. I think it's a good transfer for him. I think 8.5 million is a lot of money, but I think Dynamo will make it back. Artem, what do you think of the Croatian Modric?
I mean, based off his nickname, he must be quite good. I've never seen him play, to be honest. I didn't even watch the highlights yesterday, so
Yeah,
I'm not going to pretend like I saw. But hopefully he turns out to be a decent player. He looks like, or it sounds like he could be one of the better players in the league.
yeah, agree. I think see, for me, it's just if people are rating the transfer on Twitter, that's enough for me.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
when has Twitter ever been wrong? Name me
Twitter's
5
never
times.
been wrong. Okay, they were mad about Rajkovic, so I came in here and dissed Rajkovic. Okay, they were right. They were happy about Gaich, so I came in here and picked up Gaich. Richard, do you think Moro is a good transfer? You did mention him earlier. Do you think he's gonna really take Dynamo to the next level?
I was reading 2 years ago, apparently, how he got a bad injury 2 years ago, and before that, apparently, he was being linked with some really top clubs in Europe. Clubs in Serie A, Premier League, things like that. He was playing with it, then he got an injury out for 6 months, and he's dropped a little bit deeper since then. We were discussing it on the RFM pod. He dropped a little bit deeper since then. I think it could be a really good signing. Yeah. One thing I did notice with Dynamo last season is that Moro and Fomin could be a really good midfield partnership. Because if you think last year, look at the midfielders Dynamo had last year. We mentioned this on the RFM pod a couple of weeks back. Look at the midfielders Dynamo had last year. They had, wasn't it, Yusupov, Sosnin,
Bunch of old players.
Oistatter. Basically, they have the turning circle, the slow, and they have the turning circle of an oil tanker. So, I mean, it's Dynamo needed more mobile midfielders, don't they? And I think Moro and Fomin are just perfect. And also, as well, okay, they paid a lot of money for him, but if you think wages-wise, I think he's going to be on a lot less than him, and Fomin are going to be on a lot less than Yusupov was on. So I think it's going to be potentially a very good signing, yeah, for Dynamo. Just what they need, rebuild that midfield. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. Hopefully, we'll start in the next couple of weeks.
Fair play. The other transfer is Lokomotiv have signed this Francois Camano guy from Bordeaux for 5.5 million. He's a very technically gifted player, but he apparently has attitude issues. His head wasn't really in it last year. So it's a matter of getting him going. It does not seem like he has Yuri Semen's character, which is very important to Lokomotiv fans. But I hope he can prove them wrong. Now, talking about Lokomotiv players, they are being carried this season by one man and one man only, even for a couple of seasons now. Alexei Miranchuk is, of course, that man. I don't want to listen to Antonio Conte. But Alexei Miranchuk is apparently Atalanta, who reached the UCL quarters. They're in advanced talks with him. AC Milan are apparently in advanced talks with him. Some other Serie A clubs are in advanced talks with him. Artem, now you love Miranchuk. What do you think of this deal? Apparently, the fee is around 20 million. So what do you think of this move to Atlanta, and do you think it's the best place for him?
I think it's the best move for everyone, to be honest. Like, when I heard Atlanta's name being linked to him first, I was like, there's no way he's going to go there. But then looking at it, like, they have such an attacking team. And if he can fill in for Jose Ilicic, or he's having some personal problems at the moment. If he can, take that spot in the team, I think he'd be amazing. But from what I'm hearing on Twitter from mainly Stefano, of course, is that Miranchuk only wants to move to Italy if it's to Milan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'd prefer him to go to Atlanta with the way they play. But Milan, obviously, I think he might prefer it more because of the city, because of the brand, everything else that comes with playing for Milan. So I think he'd do either way. I just hope he gets his move and proves to the world that Russian football is actually good.
Right, Richard, what do you think of the move, and do you think it's going to work out well?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, we were all looking at it and thinking Milan were, in pole position, and all of a sudden Atalanta have just completely gazumped them. I think it's quite funny, isn't it? How Milan are, they were trying to. There was all those talks about reportedly offering cash plus either, what's it now, Diego Laxalt or Ricardo Rodriguez as part exchange. Yeah. And we're all laughing about that because Lokomotiv already have 10 foreign players and the limit's 8. So, it's neither use nor ornament to offer Lokomotiv another foreign player. You just pay the cash if you want him.
Yeah.
It's quite funny. I think Atalanta could be potentially quite good. It's like what Artem said. You've got at the minute, you've got the player who's having personally. Who is that? Is it Ilicic? Is it?
Yes.
Yes, Ilicic. I've also heard reports that Malinowski could be leaving. That Malinowski might cash in. So if he goes, they might cash in on Malinowski. So if he goes, there's a potential for Miranchuk to slot in there. I think it could be quite a good move. Although I do concur with what Archam said. I understand why he would probably prefer Milan out of the two because historically they're a bigger club. It's the city and everything like that, the brand. I mean, let's be fair, if Atalanta weren't having this amazing season, I remember reading Parma were reportedly interested in him, and, let's be honest, Parma finished 11th last year in Serie A. He's never in a million years going to go to Parma. He won't leave Lokomotiv to go to Parma. So, I mean, Atalanta are in for him at the minute, and deservedly so, because, they're playing some great football. They look like they're joining that upper echelon now of Italian clubs. At least for the time being. So, yeah, I think it's a good move for him. I also think Milan would be a good move for him because they've got Hakan Çalhanoğlu at Milan. He's a good player, but he's also coming out of contract soon, I think, from what I'm hearing. And they probably could do with one more attacking midfielder in the squad. So either of them, I think, will be good moves. I do concur, though, that he looks like he would prefer Milan. I do understand it from his point of view that he would prefer Milan, but Atalanta do look like they're in further talks. So I think this is going to be a story to watch over the next couple of weeks. It certainly will be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think wherever he goes in Serie A, he's going to do very well. Except for, I don't want him to go to Parma, even though Gervinho's there, and we know Gervinho's a legendary player. Apart, I think Atlanta, Milan, Roma, any big top 6, top 7 club, I think he will do very, very well at. Some other transfer news before we get to the biggest transfer news of it all, which we're going to reveal in a second. Krasnodar got his contract extended with Wanderson. He was linked to Sporting Lisbon and Everton and a couple of other clubs. In my opinion, he's one of the top 5 players in the league. And I think he's very, very underrated. What's a half defender? What are they called?
I was going to say that translation is awful. In Russian, polozashitnik is half defender. Like it just means midfielder, but it just like you'd think that they'd have a translation for that.
Yeah. Anyway, good for him. Good for Krasnodar. I think he can become a real legend at the club. Then we also have. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say I don't think he's looking to become a legend there. I think he's probably going to become one of the better players in the league and dip.
He's already one of the better players in the league.
Well, do you not think he's just going to play a couple of years really well, get linked to a bigger team in top 5 leagues and move? I don't think that's legend status.
I don't know. I mean, I think he would have, if he wanted to, gotten a good move to Sporting or
Sporting is the same level as Krasnodar, though. Let's be honest. He already knows the league.
It is, but that league, it's not that good. He'd score 20 goals there. It's people like Bas Dost score a lot of goals. And I think if he wanted to stat pad, he'd go there. But I imagine that Krasnodar with the facilities, with the project, probably be more appealing for a couple more years. But it'll be interesting to see. Then this last thing we have is Napoli. Apparently, I don't really believe this, which is why I don't think we're going to spend much time on it. I speak fluent Italian, by the way, which is why I can read all of this, obviously, Mr. Worldwide. Napoli want Giorgi Zichia because they're looking to cut down on their wage bill and they want players from non-top 5 leagues. Even though they spent 80 million on Victor Osimhen this year. Richard, do you think there is any hint of reality to this, and do you think it's going to happen?
This one's a little bit less believable. I mean, compared to the Miranchuk story, anyway. I mean, yeah, like you were saying, they've already spent money on, Victor Osimhen. I mean, to be fair, I did have a look, and they have got rid of a few players to facilitate that move. But They're also being linked with Nikola Vlasic, so they seem to be being linked with everybody in the RPL at the minute. Vlasic, Shakir. I don't know. I'm beginning to think this might be a bit more agent talk. But
Yeah.
I just think they, unless Napoli, I don't really see where they're going to need another centre half, and I think they're probably going to look, and if they could, ideally, they get mega money for him, so they're probably going to want to look somewhere else. So I don't know how much truth there is in that, to be honest. The
Right.
Miranchuk story I can definitely believe, but I'm not as certain on that. We'll have to see in the next few days, see if any more details or stories come out about it. But I'm a bit more skeptical about this rumor, to be honest.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Artem, do you think this is real? And do you think it might happen?
For anybody who knows me, they'll know that I'm a massive fan of Georgi Gikia and how much I'd like this move to happen. But there's 0% chance of it happening, so let's just move on.
Yeah, let's just move on. The last transfer story we have, and we're now gonna get into a sort of a fun segment on this podcast where we're just gonna ask each other rapid fire questions. Because we're done with the talking, we're done with the discussions about Gaich and all of this. Now, this bloke you can see, he's this Argentinian winger. He plays for this club called Barcelona, tiny club. And he's apparently going to leave the club this year because Barcelona got beat by Bayern Munich and his head's not in it anymore. As a Real Madrid fan, I am absolutely stoked by this news. And Lokomotiv did a little meme where they have signed him as a joke. Now,
You know what I've heard
Yeah.
about this bloke? I heard that he's tipped to be the Argentinian Rigoni.
yeah. I don't think, I know he's got some good goals. I think he's a decent level player, but I don't know if he can replace Rybczynski on the wings, or if he's got Semen's character. But it is interesting. We're gonna start with you, Artem. What RPL club do you think would benefit the most with Messi if you had to choose one? Because realistically, he could play for Kimki and keep them up. But if you had to choose just one club, what club do you think Messi would benefit the most?
As in, like, not counting transfers, fees, wages, or anything like that. Just
No, yeah,
pick Messi up and put him
exactly,
into a team.
Exactly, yes.
I'm sure it'd probably be one of the relegation teams. Like, who's the most likely to get relegated? Probably Himki. I'd probably say them
Kimki,
because
probably.
it's going to make the biggest difference. Like, for Zenit, like, we don't need him. We've already got Malcolm. We've got Rigoni. We don't need this fraud. Like, we're going to win the league anyway. So
Yeah.
it would probably be one of the relegation teams like Himki, or it would be like maybe Rubin. Maybe get them back into Europe.
You think he can start over the dribble merchant though?
Vukovic.
Yeah.
He'd challenge him for a first team place, and that's all you can ask from him, really.
Right. I think you're right. He probably would help, the relegation clubs fair bit. I think he would probably do well at Lokomotiv, given how toothless they are when it's not for Miranchuk. But I don't know, because CSKA and Spartak play three at the back, and they don't really have wingers, and they have too many strikers, so you can't put him there. Maybe Rostov or Dynamo or a club like that might be of use. Maybe he want to go to Ekaterinburg and play with Eric Bikfalvi. The possibilities are limitless. Richard, what club do you think Messi would help out the most in the RPL?
This guy, he's it's probably always been his lifelong dream to go and live in Yekaterinburg or Volgograd or Himki.
Some people say that he only grew a beard because of Andrew Flint.
Yeah, why does he go and play? Yeah, Yekaterinburg would be perfect. Lovely city. Delicious double act with Eric Bikfalvi might help Ural's attack. Who will need a striker when you got Messi and Bikfalvi? He can show some real potential. And then in 2 years when things are all fine and dandy back at the Camp Nou, he can just say, okay, bye, I'm going back to the Camp Nou, and everything's all good again. New board, new vision. Yeah, why not go to Ural? Why not pair himself up with a man in the Urals of Eric Bigfalvi. You know, why not
Exactly.
go there?
Yeah, and
Here's a question. How many goals do you think, if Messi had a full season in the RPL, how many goals do you think he'd score?
Oh. Good question, actually. Should we start at 50?
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
he.
it'd be that high. I actually I can see him getting 20. Like he'd probably break some kind of record in the RPL,
Yeah,
but I don't think it'd be like a goal per game. I think he'd get his legs broken every second week.
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of players would just be too intimidated and awestruck to be, playing, because you're like, why is Messi here? Why is Messi going to play
Listen,
why is he in Saransk playing Tambov? Why is
I
that
can I can
happening?
I can completely see Brian Adowu shutting Messi down.
Yeah, I can. Boris Rotenberg, by the way, he's a player of I think who Messi would really learn from. Is he still with Lokomotiv or did his contract get broken?
I have no idea.
No idea. We
No,
don't
would
care.
you
I
believe
thought
it?
he
He is.
left.
No, he's still there. I
Oh, he's
checked. He's
still
Really?
still.
there. There you go.
He's still there.
So
Yeah.
Messi is really, really, he's probably wants to work with him. But I think he'd score at least 25 goals and get 15, 16 assists. I think he'd easily break a few records.
You know,
And
about the assists, I feel like that all depends on his teammates. Because like I feel like Messi could set people up, put them on an absolute plate, and they'd be like, that small off chance yesterday, or like the
Header.
Sterling chance the other day in the Champions League. I feel like a lot of that would happen a lot, and
Yeah.
he might not get as many as you think.
Okay. So now that we're done with Messi, by the way, for our viewers, Messi is going to remain on this screen for the rest of the episode. So you can look at his beautiful face for the rest of it, because we're moving on to a thing we thought of with a thing I thought of, and I'm basically gonna ask Richard and Artem and then answer myself. Just random questions about the RPL, and you guys will get a gist of it once we get on with it. So Richard, and you have to answer like just in one word or answer shortly, because we want to make it as spontaneous as possible. Richard,
Okay.
what's your favorite RPL team?
I'm neutral.
If you had to pick one.
Funnily enough, I would say possibly Rostov, because when they nearly won the league, that's when I really got into Russian football.
Okay,
I really followed that story. It was almost like a Leicester kind of fairy tale, wasn't it, in Russia? So probably Rostov. But
It's a good
by and
shout.
large, I'm neutral.
They're a
Yeah.
good club.
Yeah.
They're
From a purely neutral perspective, I think Rostov would be liked by a lot of people. So I can get behind that. Me and Adam don't need to answer this because everybody knows already. But Richard, what do you think? What's the team in the RPL that you hate the most?
I don't particularly like Tambov, to be honest. I mean, they're out in Saransk and Nizhny Novgorod playing games. It's like, at least if they were playing in the home city, it's not a problem, but they're just out there. They've got no fat. There's very few crowds. They're sort of just stuck there, aren't they? It's like,
Yeah.
I'd much rather see someone like Torpedo, Nizhny Novgorod, Baltica, Chatanova in the RPL. Yeah, Krylia. I'd rather see someone like that in the RPL than Tambov. So probably Tambov, actually. In
Yeah,
terms of realistically about being there and possibly getting relegated, one of those sides that just escapes every year, probably Tambov.
true. They play games that nobody watches, that nobody cares about. So, their existence as a whole can be debated. Artem, what's your least favorite RPL team?
okay. So I'm gonna put the rivalry with Spartak aside here.
Right.
Before Christmas of 2019, I would have said Rubin Kazan. I
Right.
just thought they were so boring. Like they couldn't fill even a tenth of their stadium capacity. They were just awful. But now that they have Slutsky and a few interesting players, 100% they're not the team. I'm kind of in agreement with Richard. Tambov is just like we said that they just their team no one really wants to watch, and then
Yeah.
it's between them and Himki just because this is going to
Definitely.
sound extremely petty, but they beat me in the Russian Cup once in Football Manager, and I haven't quite gotten over it.
That's fair. I think the team I hate the most is Sochi for sure, without a doubt, because
Ooh.
they're a horrible club that nobody cares about. They basically living off donations and stimulus packages from the bigger clubs, and the sooner they're gone, the better. But yeah, there are a lot of boring clubs. If I had to say most boring club, it would probably be Ural or Tambov or Rotor or Khimki. Who cares about any of those clubs? Honestly, who wants to watch Rotor versus Khimki or Rotor versus Sochi or Khimki versus Sochi? Anything like that. Gonna have a
To
fair.
be fair,
Yeah.
to be fair, Rotor are a famous club. They are like, historically they were like, I think they second in the 90s twice. So I don't really hate Rotor. I do agree with you about Sochi though. They're probably my number 2 most disliked. I mean, if Tambov went down, they'd probably be my number 1 because there was the whole franchise kind of thing about taking them from St. Petersburg, dumping them down in Sochi. It's, they are the Russian MK Dons basically. They've
Yeah.
basically been franchised. And no, I don't like Sochi either. So I'll just come in there. But Rotor, I don't know. I'd like to see them stay up in the Premier League. I like them and Krylia. I think they're two sides who do get decent crowds. They could grow. But yeah, Tambov, Khimki. Yeah, I'm not keen on seeing them in the RPL. Yeah, not keen on them at all.
Moving to the next question. Artem, who do you think is the best player in the league?
Ooh, the best player in the league. It's a tough one. There's so many like really, really top players in the league. Interestingly, I'm not actually going to say Malcolm. I don't think he's done enough in the Russian Premier League just yet to be considered that. Vlasic is unbelievable. I feel like he carries that CSKA team, so he's definitely up there. Dzyuba is definitely up there as well. And then Mario Fernandes. So it's between Mario Fernandes, Dzyuba, and Vlasic for me. But I'll say, who will I say? Oh, no idea, man. Between those three and Miranchuk, to be honest.
Okay, for me it's
The four
Vlasic.
players.
For me it's Vlasic. I think there's no qualms with him. I think he's the best player in the league. Richard, who do you think is the one best player in the league?
I'll throw all those names into the equation as well for mine. It's a tough one to choose. I'll also throw Barrios in there. I've been really impressed
Oh
with him.
yeah,
Yeah,
how did I
facts,
forget
actually.
about
How did we
him?
forget that?
What
Barrios
about
and
Barrios?
Vlasic for
Yeah.
me. Barrios and Vlasic for me, I think. What about you? So what's your pick?
It's a tough one. Probably Miranchuk, you'd probably say too. If I was going to choose somebody, if I'm choosing somebody purely on the basis of team and the impact they made, I'm going off what they did last year and the impact that they had. I'm going to say Miranchuk because if you think about it, last year he basically carried them to second place.
Yeah.
Without him, they would not have finished second because Eder was just terrible up front. Djordjevic was injured. Smolov was out on loan. They had basically no strikers. Farfan was injured. And he just basically carried them. So, it's...
I feel like the
I'm
Russian
going
league has a
to
lot of
judge it on
players.
last year. Yeah, I'm judging it on last year. I'm going to say Miranchuk. But
I feel like the Russian league has a lot of players that are all very similar level to each other. Like they have that big impact for their team. Like I generally there's about 6 players in that conversation. I'm gonna say Vlasic though. Like I'm just gonna go back and just say Vlasic.
Yeah, I think for me it's very tough between Vlasic and Barrios. Very, very tough between
yeah.
Vlasic and Barrios. But yeah, Miranchuk is a good shout because he has properly carried that team. Now, Artem, who do you think is, or we broaden this a little bit, who do you think are some of the most underrated players in the league?
Underrated. Jesus, this put me on the spot.
Yeah, that's the point here.
I think thing is a lot of people rate Barrios, but I still don't think he's rated quite as highly as he should be.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. Jesus, yeah. Do you know what? I'm just gonna say Barrios because I nothing else is coming to my head.
That's fine. Richard, what about you? Do you have any names for the underrated players?
Underrated. I think I'm a fan of. terms of being underrated, I think, Barrios, like what Artem said, I like Barrios a lot, and I think sometimes people just look at the attack mindedness of Zenit and, the likes of Azmoun and Juba scoring loads of goals up front, and you almost forget how dynamic and important a player like Barrios is in that midfield. He can step out, he's good technique, he can pass, he can dispossess opponents, he's got good stamina, lasts a long time in games. He's a shout. In terms of others, I noticed one thing last year, which was quite interesting further down the table, that Andrei Semyonov at Akhmat played every single minute last season and only got 3 yellow cards, which, for a central defender playing in a team right at the bottom of the league is quite something too. And he's good enough to play for, I think, a team behind Zenit in that race for second place. I think, Semyonov, he'd fit like someone like CSKA or Dynamo quite nicely, I think, but I think he's on mega wages down there. So he's quite an underrated player. Trying to think of other who's also, who do a good job and are quite underrated. In that defensive midfield role, you probably, again, Barinov's come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, and I think he, Krychowiak scored a lot of goals for them in that centre midfield role last season, Wilco, but, Barinov's not really talked about, but he does a good job. He does a good, reliable job.
Oh,
Those are the names. I can't pinpoint somebody in particular, but those are probably 3 or 4 of the names that I've just mentioned who I'd probably pick out.
Right.
I completely agree with you on Baranov, actually. Like, I watched him play live last season, and I was surprised. Like, he was everywhere on the pitch. He does so much running. He does all that dirty work, like, in the background, similar to Barrios. And I do think that he should be appreciated more for it.
Yeah. Now, I may or may not have gotten a small list of players down for this in.
Oh, well, okay.
But no, I did think about this. I think Wanderson is very, very, very underrated. Even though he's started to get a bit of fame now because of his dribbling, I think he is very underrated still. You didn't hear him in those conversations before this. But I think Christian Ramirez is a very underrated player. I think he could definitely, he's one of the best left backs in the league. I think he goes down under the radar. The Zambians at Arsenal, Tula, they don't get much playing time, but whenever they do, they make an impact. They're pretty decent. I think the Caio bloke Krasnodar have, he started as a defensive midfielder, was horrible, got an own goal, got a red card, things like that. Since he slotted into defense, he's been very good. He's been very reliable. I think Rostov have probably got a couple of players. I think Matthias Norman is underrated. I think Bakhtiar Zainuddinov is underrated. Those would probably be my names. But I think Barinov, I don't know if I agree, because I think people rate Barinov fairly. But Barrios, I think he's very, very good. And I think he deserves more than he gets. Now it's time to flip the question.
One more name quickly, guys, who's just come into my head. Is the goalkeeper at Ufa, is it?
Belanov.
Yeah. I think he's really underrated. He could play for a decent team, I think, in the league.
Okay.
I was always surprised that he didn't have quite the career he should have. Like, he's always been in the conversation, like, for one of the best keepers in the league. He's always been in the clean sheets list, like, and yeah, he's always played for, like, the, bottom half of the table teams.
I agree. I think him and Dupin both deserve Russian national team caps over some of the players that still make the grade for Cherchesov. It's time to flip the question, and I have zero idea what I'm going to answer for this one. But what do you guys think is the most overrated player in the league? A player that people rate, but you don't to that extent. Richard, do you have any in mind?
Trying to think, actually.
Artem, if you do as well, because I don't have anything on this. I just wrote the question down, and I'm gonna have to think now.
I feel like we might have to cut this.
We need. I think we'll find one. Oh, you know what?
Coming into.
Okay, let's not make it overrated. Who is the worst player you guys have seen on a Russian football pitch?
Oh God.
For me, it's probably Adair or someone like that. Because the real answer would probably be Rotor's fourth choice left back. But can you guys think of some really awful players to have graced Russia?
Yeah, like, I kind of agree with you with it there. I feel like it's always like if it's a striker who's just extremely ineffective.
Yeah.
But like, for example, when Zabolotny played for Zenit,
Oh my
Like
god.
that was just.
Oh, it's Abalotny, yeah.
Oh my god.
But saying that, like he's been okay for Sochi, and he was okay for Tosno as well. So like I don't know if he's the worst player I've ever seen. You know, like obviously Boris Rottenberg is up there.
Kadyrov's
Yeah,
son probably too.
yeah.
And what about you, Richard? Do you have any in mind?
Eder's just really adds nothing to. I mean, the crazy thing with him is he seems to score goals that win championships and things like that.
Yeah.
He scored the goal that won Portugal the Euros. He scored the goal that won Lokomotiv the title. But yeah, you just look at him and he's just adding nothing to Zenit. To Lokomotiv's attack at all. Like they put Smolov in, and suddenly they've looked a lot better in attack since they've done that. Ever.
Okay.
It's difficult to pinpoint one in particular, but I think Eder definitely does add nothing to Lokomotiv's attack at all. So
it is difficult. Now, the last one I've got, I think we will have answers for this, although it could cause debate. Who do you guys think is the best manager in the league? Now, think about, because it might be very straightforward with Semak, but what do you guys think? Artem, what do you think? Who do you think is the best manager in the league?
In recent times, it has to be Samak. He's been just very solid. But the problem is if you're saying like ever, like from all the managers that are in the league now,
yeah,
like who's the best ever? That's a different story. Because obviously Samak has only coached 2 teams. He's been great at both, but you know he's still not really done much in the Champions League or anything. I don't know. Like Slutsky has a very good CV behind him. In recent years, he's not been as good.
Yeah.
Goncharenko's a great manager. Who else am I missing? Tedesco's not really been, around too long.
Mm-hmm.
Neither has Nikola. I think I'm just gonna have to say Semak, to be honest.
Yeah. I think the question you'd ask is would Slutsky do a better job with Zenit than Semak is, or would Semak do a better job at Rubin? I think by current quality, I'd probably say Semak too. Richard, do you agree? Do you think Semak is the best manager in the league?
I'm completely in agreement with you guys. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the league. It's too early to judge managers like Nikola just yet. Goodness knows what's going to happen with Tedesco at Spartak. I mean, he seems to be permanently banned from the touchline. I mean, and he's only contracted till June 2021. So you never know; he might just completely disappear at the end of this season. I mean, whether he stays or not, dependent on results. But I mean, if you only sign an 18-month contract in the first place, it's like, are you really that committed? But yeah, keeping to the topic, I'd probably have to agree with you guys and say Samat, because it's easy to remember at Ufa, he did a very, very good job there too. I think he finished 6th in the league, got them some brilliant results. And I mean, you only have to look at Ufa the season after he left. They dropped to about, I think it was 11th or 12th, or were they even in the relegation playoff, I think. So that sums up a manager. When that happens, when they leave, it's not just about the system and the structure in place. They have an impact as well. And, Ufa are a very well-run club, and you could see when he left that they dropped. So I would probably go with Semak. But I think this year is a big year for him in Europe. He does need to do a little bit better there. But I would say Semak at the minute, because no one else is really ringing out at me. So,
yeah. Well, what do you think of Musayev, actually, both of you? Krasnodar.
Musayev's an interesting one, because I think Krasnodar need to start soon showing a little bit more. I watched them against Lokomotiv, and they seem to really freeze in big games. Like, if you look at the 2 games they played last 2 years against Zenit, they could have won those games both at home and froze. They lost at Dynamo at home last year, and that was one of the results that cost them the Champions League spot, automatic Champions League qualification. And again with Loco, Loco made the better chances in that game. Safonov in goal had to do a lot of good saves for Krasnodar. So I think I'm still not sold on Musayev yet. He's still young. You've got to give him a bit of time, of course. Krasnodar will, but they need to improve in big games, Krasnodar, because they're no longer this plucky little underdog club. They're a well-financed club now. They've got a brilliant academy. They've spent a lot of money on players. They need to start now, even if it's winning stuff like the Russian Cup, they need to start now putting the structures in place to challenge for titles and cups and do better in Europe. So I think it's too early to judge Musayev yet. He's potential, but I'm on the fence at the minute with him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Krasnodar should be challenging for the title, taking it down right to the wire. They should be doing much better in Europe. And I think they have the squad, they have everything. I think at some point you're going to have to consider Musayev as an experienced manager and not just this bloke who's got potential, isn't it? So I think you're gonna have to start discussing Musaev in these conversations about whether whether he's not as good as we think he is. But I think that wraps that segment up pretty well. I think it was a nice little segment, and I think that does it pretty much for this episode of the podcast. You guys got anything else you want to talk about? Some topics maybe that we might have left out?
Nothing I can think of anyway. I think we've covered everything pretty well.
Yeah, Richard, you?
No, not particularly. No, I think we've covered all our bases.
Yeah.
One little thing quite interesting though, CSKA being linked with I think it's Bruno Fuchs from International, centre defender. I was just saw something the other day. It's Gaich is of German background, and this guy also, I think, with his surname is German background. So they seem to be linked with anybody who's from South America at the minute with German grandparents or great grandparents or something, which I found quite interesting. But yeah, that's one centre half that CSKA being linked with at the minute. But they seem to be hunting down anyone in South America with German great grandparents or something, which I found quite funny. But yeah, that's one thing I bring in. Yeah, but that could be an interesting little move to watch in the next few weeks. Bruno Fuchs from International coming to CSKA.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's a matter of time before they're in for Matthias Cranwitter as well. With the
God. Zenit, in terms of timing, that was absolutely perfect from Zenit, wasn't it? They offloaded him to that club in Mexico for €9 million just before the pandemic hit. That's perfect timing.
Decent sum as well.
Because he just collected substitute appearances from the bench.
Horrible little player. But I think that covers everything, and I think we've had a really enjoyable podcast. Hope our listeners enjoyed. Richard, thanks a lot for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
Pleasure, guys.
And I think, do you want to plug your Twitter before we go off?
Yeah, my Twitter is @RichDPike. @RichDPike89, I think. @RichDPike89.
All right. Artem?
Just thank you for listening. I've already left my Twitter around, and I'm sure you'll see this podcast share on there anyway.
Yeah.
Listen, Richard, thanks a million for coming on. You're fantastic, and thanks to the listeners for listening to the end. If you did enjoy this podcast, please leave a like, share it around, let us know what you think. And if you want to come on, just let us know. Or if you want to join me and Hanu for, a chat on Discord one of these days and watch a match with us, let us know as well. So thanks a million, everyone, and see you next time.